So in the last lecture, we had started with the database control. So database control, it is once we have distributed the database over the network. Now, how to control those fragments or how to work or retrieve or manage the data from those databases which are spread across the networks, different networks. So there are three dimensions we started with of the database control. Those are authentication, access rights, and integrity constraints. So authentication is basically the process through which only the authenticate users can gain the access to that database or to that data resources. So in the authentication, there are again two levels: controlling access to client computer and controlling access to the database software. Okay, that is the application program. So controlling access to the client program at this level, user access is restricted. And how we restrict that access? That is, while logging to the client computer, it should provide the user interface to the database servers. So the most common technique which we use for the authentication is username and password. So with that method, we can control the authenticate only authenticate user can access that particular machine or that database. Now further level, now the advanced level or the techniques has come, such as biometric authentication, which can be used for high security data. Okay. So it is, I mean, how that particular database or that particular module is important. Based on that, you can apply the authentication technique. So at the basic level, we always go for the username and password. Then next is controlling access to the database software. At this level, the database administrator assigns some credentials to the user, and the user gains the access to the database using credentials. Now, one of the methods again is to create a login within the database servers. So as per the different levels of users, the administrator will create the different login. Like in colleges and all, the teacher login is different, the admin login is different, then student login is different, and at every level it will provide the different functionality, whichever is needed for that particular user. So the authentication is the one way using which we can control the database access. Then access rights. Now access rights, users access rights refers to the privilege that the user is given regarding database management system operation, such as DBS, whether that user is able to, I mean, can modify the database, or if he can modify the table up to what certain level he can do it, like whether he'll be able to, he can create the table, or he can drop the table, or he can make changes to that particular table. So based on the, again, the user, the level of user, or the type of user, the access, the privileges are assigned to that each of the user. So if he's having the more technological or the programmer itself, then he'll be having all the access for that, all the queries or the operations related with the database. If he is the at the employee level, the one who is handling only through the interface, he is not having much idea about the technicalities, then he'll be only able to view the data. Okay, or he can only change the data. He won't be able to create, or the privilege will not be assigned to that particular user. So depending upon the type of user, the privileges are assigned to each of it. Now in distributed environments, since it's a large, there are large number of tables and the users which are spread across, it is not feasible to assign the individual access rights to users. So a distributed database management system defines certain roles. Okay, that means for individual, instead of giving, because it is at large scale, so it is not possible to give individual at individual level the access or to assign the privileges. So what it does, it defines the roles like admin role, user role, or it defines that particular group, basically roles means, and then that individual will be assigned to that particular role. So once a role is constructed with a certain privileges within a database system, like for admin role, all the operations can be done. Then user level or at the user role, only the view database can be viewed. Then you can say the programmer level, the one where he can create a table, modify the table. Fine. So these are the roles are defined, and then the individual will be assigned to that each of the role as per the uh, need. So once the different roles are defined, the individual users are assigned one of these roles as per the hierarchy which is defined according to the organization. Manager, accountant, they will, everybody as per their organization hierarchy will be having the different roles. So for example, here they have shown the SQL statements which create a role accountant and then assigns this role to a user ABC. So here they have written a query for creating the role. So create role accountant. Create role is a keyword. You will write down as it is and then specify the name of the role. So create role accountant, then semicolon. Now, how we assign the permissions or the privileges to that user or to that role using grant. Okay, using grant and revoke conditions, we assign and we can remove also. So here they have assigned select, insert, update, these three operations to the accountant on EMP underscore sal table. That is, here they have given the accountant the access for employee salary table where he can perform, on which he can perform select, insert and update commands. So grant is the query or the command which can, using which we can assign the privileges. Then the third line, grant space insert update delete. On is a keyword, will come as it is. On table name, tender. So tender is the table name. To keyword will come as it is, and then space, write down the role which was created. So here to the accountant, they have assigned, given the privileges of insert, update and delete command on tender table. Okay, so accountant can insert and update and delete the records from this table. Then next line, grant space insert select on expense to accountant. On expense table, the accountant can perform insert and select query. So two operations accountant can perform. And then after that, commit and semicolon. Now what is the job of commit? What is the job of commit? Yes. CSIT students, you have learned all these commands at UG level. What is the use of commit? Commit is used to save the, it is basically for the saving purpose, okay, which will save the changes to the database. So for that purpose, once the privileges are assigned, the commit is written. So before that, whatever the transactions are performed, all will be saved. Then next line, grant accountant to ABC. Now grant space, after that the role you have to write down, space, two is a keyword, will come as it is, space, ABC. ABC is the user, okay, the name of the user, or you can say the username. Now to that particular user, we are assigning the role accountant using grant. And then again, to save the changes, commit is written. Okay, so in SQL, for committing the commit the changes or to save the changes, there is a command commit, commit. Fine. And to undo the changes, anyone?
Rollback.
Rollback command is there to undo the changes. Okay. So here they have created the role accountant, to which they have assigned different privileges, and then that role has been assigned to a individual user. So this way, say access rights. The third is the semantic integrity control. Now, semantic integrity control, it basically enforces the referential integrity constraint of the database. Now, what is referential integrity constraint? I think we had discussed in the previous lectures. What is integrity integrity constraints? Referential integrity constraint. Okay, fine. It is there. At that time we will discuss. So the semantic integrity control, it enforces the integrity constraints of the database. So those are the first one, data type integrity constraint, then entity integrity constraint, and third is the referential integrity constraint. So data type integrity constraints are basically the rules or the constraints which we put while assigning the data type to that particular variable or to that particular column. So whatever the constraints which are assigned on that particular data type, those constraints will be applicable to the that particular column. So data type integrity constraint. Data type constraint restricts the range of values and type of operations that can be applied to the field with the specified data type. So it will be only applicable to that particular column. So let's say if you have defined the column EMP ID. So EMP ID space, then you specify the data type. So let's say int. Okay, so that whatever the constraint you have applied on that int data type will be only applicable to the EMP ID column. So for example, here they have created one table, hostel. The hostel is having three fields: hostel ID, that is hostel number, hostel name, and the capacity. So these three columns or the three attributes they have defined for that hostel table. So hostel number should start with, and they have put some constraints on it. So the hostel number should start with capital letter H and cannot be null. And the capacity should not be more than 150. So there are these constraints. The one, hostel number should not be null. So we need to use the not null constraint for that particular column. And then the capacity should not be more than 150. So for that, we need to write down which constraint? Check constraint. See, these are the constraints which we put it while designing, while defining that particular table. So how we define the constraint? For those, I came to know that here we have the combination mix group of students. So there are few of some of the students who are coming directly from the maths or physics subjects. So they are not aware about this basic SQL statements. So whenever possible, I will explain, but I want you also to please go through the basic commands in SQL and PLSQL. Okay, from your side also. If you have any query, otherwise, meanwhile during the lecture you can ask while understanding this whenever I am explaining to you. Okay. So for creating the table in SQL, we have the statement create table. So you can see create table space hostel. Now hostel is the name of the table. Now this name you can give as per the program need or as per the business need. Okay. It should be logical. Only it should be logical. It should not contain space or any other special character. Okay. That thing you should keep it in mind. Create table is these are the keywords will come as it is. Those are the statements, commands. Then open the parenthesis. Inside the parenthesis, we specify the list of attributes or the list of columns which you want to create it in that particular table. So I think someone's mic is on. Can you just mute yourself? Okay, so create table hostel. Inside the parenthesis, we have to create now three columns. Hostel number, hostel name, and capacity. Okay, so three attributes for that entity. Then hostel number, we are assigning the data type as varchar. Okay, varchar 2 inside the parenthesis 5. So what is basically, the data type in SQL, we have the numeric data type, then character data type. So in general, normally for the variable length character, we use the varchar. For the only characters, we have the char. Then for the numeric, we have the integer. Okay, so these are the generally we use the data type. If there are more data types are available, you can go through by yourself from the SQL manual. So when we specify varchar 2 is the name of the data type, and inside the parenthesis it is 5. So what is that 5? 5 is nothing but the maximum length, max length for that particular column. So 5 means that hostel number can be at the most 5-digit long. Okay, that is the maximum length. Then space. After that, you are supposed to specify the constraint if you want to put. Now here we want to put the not null constraint. Not null constraint is what? This is a constraint which will not allow the user to put the null values into h_no column. So no user, user can't leave that left that particular field blank. He has to enter some value into it. Okay, so it is basically the compulsory value. So whenever you want to make the field compulsory, you can put the not null, so that it will not allow the user to go further to create the table. So there is a not null constraint in SQL. We have not space and then null. So you will write down as it is. Then comma, give the next column name. or the attribute name. Now next column name is the hostel name. So now the column name, while giving the column name also, it is your choice as per the program, as per the business, whatever the scenario you write down, or you give the attribute name. Now here hostel name we want. So you can give the entire text like hostel name without any spaces, or you can make like here h underscore name or h name. Fine, it should be logical. Only without spaces you are supposed to give. Underscore is allowed. So that is the class column name first. Then that is h underscore name space, again specify the data type. So data type here again for the name also they have specified the varchar2, and inside parentheses you can see the character length is 15 because that much long our name is generally, so as per that they have specified the 15th max length. Now hostel number, now you must be saying that hostel number, why they have given the varchar, it's a number so it should be numeric. Now again it is based on the as per that hostel, how they are giving the hostel number, whether they are using only numeric data like 1 2 3 or something like that, whole numbers, or they are starting with h1 h2, okay, hostel number. So because they have specified the varchar 2, I'm assuming that hostel number they are starting with some characters and then number. Okay, so like h1 h2 h3 like that. That's why they have given varchar 2. Same, the next is h underscore name, the varchar 2 15. So 15 is the max length. Then comma, next attribute or next column, that is capacity. Now capacity is the another third attribute for so capacity also the column name you can give as per your choice. Then space, specify the data type. Now as I said, in the numeric they have the uh, data type integer. Okay, so here they have specified capacity space integer, comma. Now not null constraint is done. Now two more constraints they have to put. One is the h number should start with the capital H. Okay, this is one constraint, and the next constraint is the capacity of the hostel should not be more than 150. Okay, so these two constraints they have to check. For that, in SQL we have the constraint check. So you can see here the check constraint, and inside the parentheses you are supposed to specify the condition which you want to satisfy. Now for the h number we want it should start with the h, capital H. Okay, so for pattern matching in SQL we have the operator like. So like is the operator in SQL which is used for pattern matching. Pattern matching means here we are matching the pattern of that h number should always begin with the capital H. Okay, so you will specify with column name, that is h number space like will come as it is. It's a keyword for the operator like operator. Then space, inside the single quote you are supposed to specify the pattern. Now if you see h and then percent, so this way we actually specify the pattern. H percent means what? That number will always begin with H, and percent means after that, irrespective of whatever the combination of character you are using after H, it is allowed. That is the meaning of percent. Percent means after first character, remaining characters can be of any combinations. But the first character has to be H, capital H. Okay. That's the way we have specified in SQL the like operator. Okay, so using check here we have put the constraint on hostel number that it will always start with H, capital H, okay? H1, H2, H3, H4, like that. Then comma, the next constraint is capacity should be less than, should not be more than 150. So inside the check, they have written that predicate, or you can say the condition. Okay, so capacity is less than or equal to 150. So this way you can put the constraint. This way we can put the constraint on the table and then close the parenthesis and semicolon. Okay, fine. Create table hostel, h number varchar 25 not null, h underscore name varchar 215, capacity integer, check. Okay, now this way if you want to see, I'll just um, we'll just check. So we're starting the Oracle. Now we'll just execute this query. Okay, so the table is created. You can see create table hostel, H number, fine. Now just to check, first we will just now check whether the constraints are working properly. So insert into hostel. First H number should not be null. Okay, so what we will do, it's a varchar, no, we will pass the null value, we will not pass anything. Then H name varchar 2, so hostel name, let's say mango. Okay, then capacity integer, so it will come without quotes. If it's a numeric data, without quotes you can pass. Okay, the character and varchar data you have to pass it between single quote. So capacity, let's say 12 students, fine. Now in this here we have see the first constraint was H number should be not null, so we are not passing anything. Then name mango, and the third is it should not be, the capacity should not be less than 150, but we have given the 12. Okay, now we'll see. So it will not allow you, 1 second, for the capacity should be less than. So it will not allow you to enter the value. Now, 1 second. Suppose I'm passing 12. See here, it is not allowing me to pass the 12. So I have to start with the H. H 12. One second. Sorry. Values keyword is missing. Now again we will start. Okay, see here you can see insert into hostel values, and just to check whether the constraints are working properly, we explicitly pass the we have not passed the first value of h now for the hostel number. So you can see now it is not, it will not allowing you us, now it is not allowing us to enter or insert the value. Cannot insert null into system hostel h number. So we can't put the assign the null value for this particular attribute because we have assigned that particular constraint. So for that you need to, now again you can, let's say 12. See here, now it is not allowing me for only numeric number also. Why? Because we have given the constraint, it should always start with the capital H. That's why it is showing check constraint violated. So give the capital H. Now on the, okay, the record is created. Select star from the table is created. Fine. So this way we can put the constraints on the data type. Okay. The next is the entity integrity control. Now these are the integrity controls or the constraints which we put it on the entity. Okay, like it enforces the rules so that each tuple can be uniquely identified from the other tuples. Now tuples means rows or the record. Okay, in the algebraic term it is called as tuple, and same with the to the table it is called as relation. Okay, in the relational algebraic term it refers table as a relation and rows as a tuple and column as an attribute. So remember, wherever I'll refer this value names. So entity integrity control, it checks whether the rules on that particular record so that it can be uniquely identified. So as we know, the CSIT students, they know all these things before only. So for the uniqueness purpose, we assign the primary key constraint. Okay. So primary key is basically a set of minimal fields that can uniquely identify a tuple. So entity integrity constraint states that no two tuples in a table can have the identical values for primary keys, and that no field which is a part of the primary key can have the null values. Okay, so whichever column values we are defining it as a primary key, that column value will not contain the duplicate rows or the two rows with the same value, and second, it should not contain any null values. So here if you see in the example, they have shown for the hostel table, here they have assigned the primary key constraint for the hostel number. The first column, they have assigned the primary key. Means what? If suppose the H1 record is already present in the table, hostel table, and if the next record also, if you are giving the H1, it will not allow you to enter the next record with the same value. That is the violation of the constraint. So that's a primary key job. It gives the, or it allows the unique values to enter in the table. Fine. So this is called as the entity integrity control. Any doubt you can ask. Now next is the differential integrity constraint. And now, if anybody's remember, we have already discussed some part of it in the previous lecture. Differential integrity constraint is related to what? Can anyone explain? Malik, can you explain, or can you tell little about referential? What is referential integrity constraint?
Ma'am,
Mhm.
can't say much about it.
No, no, we don't want much. We want little only. Yes. What do you? Okay, tell me which are the two keys or the what constraints comes into picture with the in relay differential integrity constraint. Hello.
Yeah, ma'am. Foreign key,
Yes, and
not null.
yeah, it is basically
Primary key.
yeah, yes, it is primary key foreign key relation basically. Okay, very good, Malik. You have contributed little in this. Thank you. So basically, the referential integrity constraint it puts the rules of foreign keys on a column. A foreign key is a field in a data table that is the primary key of the related table. Means if you have the table employee and in the employee table we have the field EMP ID. So generally for the uniqueness purpose, we always give the EMP ID as a primary key. Fine. Now in the EMP table, EMP ID is primary key. But now suppose if you are using that same attribute in some other table to connect it logically, then let's say in the department table you are using the attribute empid, but then there that particular key or there that particular attribute will behave as a foreign key. So in emp table empid is the primary key, and in department table empid is considered as a foreign key. Okay. Now when we are saying that it is primary key, so it can't be duplicated. So in EMP table, EMP ID value will be unique. You can't duplicate it. But in department table, as there the EMP ID is foreign key, the values can be duplicated. Remember. So basically we perform or we use this connection to connect these two tables logically. Now logically means how we start designing or how we start the building up the database. First we always starts with the ER diagram. Now what is ER diagram? ER diagram is entity relationship diagram. So in that ER diagram we identify the different entities, their association among themselves for that particular scenario, and accordingly we draw the diagram. Now, for the other subject students like maths and physics, uh, please refer to the entity relation, how to draw, or what is the basic concept of ERD, all those things. You please study from your side, because if I go to such a minute level, then it will be difficult for us to cover up the syllabus. Okay, but still, whenever possible, I will try to do it. So we start with the entity relationship diagram, that is the documentation. So in ERD we represent each and every term has its own symbol, like for the entities we denoted using rectangle, then their attributes we represented using ovals. Fine. Now before that, by the way, how many are from non-computers or non-IT background? How many students are there? You can just put it in a chat box. How many of your non-computer science or non-IT students? Those who didn't have the BSc Physics, yes. BSc Maths, okay. और कोई जो अदर देन CSIT है यूजी में? Only two? Only two students out of 97? Remaining all are CSIT background? Is it? Okay. That means you should answer. Raj. Okay, right there. Okay. So only two girls are there who are from BSc Maths and BSc Physics. Okay, fine. Thank you. So, fine. So basically the primary key and foreign key relationship. So, fine. Where I was ERD, we were then in the entity relationship diagram, we show the entities, their attributes and their relation among themselves, okay, for that particular scenario. So let's say you have a payroll system. In that, the entity employee and department. So employee, these are the two different two entities. So the relationship between employee and department is employee works for the department. Okay, so that way those two tables are connected with each other. So now to logically connect these two tables, we require the differential integrity constraint. That is the primary key foreign key concept. So for that, in such cases, what we do in the employee table, we create the EMP ID as a primary key, and in DPT table, we make EMP ID as a foreign key. And in department table, we have the DPT ID as a primary key, and in employee table, the DPT ID will be behave as a foreign key. Okay. So that way you can logically connect these two columns. Okay, sorry, these two tables. Now, by the way, what's the use of this? Why we create the referential integrity constraint? Any idea? Why we create the referential integrity constraint? See, basically the referential integrity constraints, it will not, I mean, it will see whenever you're adding or whenever you are deleting any record from the table, it will see that all its dependent variable are whichever are connected, those are also updated accordingly. Means what? Suppose these two tables are not connected. Okay, there is no referential integrity we have set up or nothing. So employee and department, these two tables are behaving as a separate entity. They are not connected with anything. Okay. So, and suppose if I try to delete, now if you see in employee table, we will have the attributes EMP ID, that is employee ID, employee name, then department ID, then salary, address, contact number. These are the attributes from the employee table. Now in department table, you have the attributes department ID, employee ID, then department name, and remaining whatever the attributes which are related with the department. Okay, but these are the attributes we have it in the employee and department both. So when I'm deleting these two tables, we are assuming that they are not connected using differential integrity. So what will happen if we delete the records from the employee table? Let's say if I say delete star from employee where EMP ID is 1. Okay, so what it will do? It will delete the record. Fine. So employee ID 1 record has been deleted from the employee table. Okay, so that is done. But if you see, employee ID 1 is still present in which table? Department table. DPT में वो अभी भी है. As I said, department table will have the attributes DPT ID, DPT name, EMP ID. These are the attributes from the department table. So we have deleted the employee ID one from the employee table, but we forgot to delete it from the department. So what will happen? Suppose if you don't remember what I have just deleted the table record from the employee table and I have forgot the DPT. That means what? The employee which is not exist only, still that employee is present in the department. So that is the error, or that's a mistake. Okay. So this such, to avoid such thing, we put the referential integrity constraint. Means what? So in such scenario, what will happen if we put the referential integrity constraint, that is primary key foreign key relation on these two tables? What will happen whenever you will try to delete the data from the employee table? It will first, it will not allow you to delete it until you are not deleting the its previous connections. Like if you try to delete it, it will show you, tell you that first delete the previous occurrences or the connections with the other table. Means first you will delete the records of that particular employee from the remaining tables whichever are connected. So here in this case we have the department table which is connected. So first you will delete the employee ID once data from the department table, and then it will allow you to delete the data from the employee table. So that's the job of referential integrity constraint. Understood? Now how to create the referential integrity constraints? See, here is the query which they have written. Create table. See, I mean, when we create, write down the create table query, at that time only we specify this referential integrity constraints. Okay. So create table student. Here they have created the student table with the S underscore roll number field, with the data type integer, space, the constraint is primary key, comma, name, space varchar2, space not null constraint on the name. Then course, column, space varchar2, pass it 10, okay, max length, comma, s underscore hostel, varchar2, 5. Now here the keyword, using the keyword references, actually we connect the tables. So s underscore hostel, this particular field which is connected from the table hostel which we created earlier. So this way they have created the primary key foreign key relationship, or you can say the referential integrity constraint. So in the hostel table, this particular hostel table which we created earlier, to this table they have connected references this s underscore hostel varchar2 5. So references, using references keyword, we can create the referential integrity constraint, or we can put the referential integrity constraints. So here the primary key of the hostel table should be included as a foreign key in the student table. So this way we can create the referential integrity. Fine. So these are the three ways to enforces or to use to check the or to handle the database control in distributed database management system: authentication, access rights, and referential integrity constraint or referential integrity. Fine. Any doubt you can ask. Okay, fine. Now I want you to create a table employee. I want you to write down a query for creating a table employee with the fields. Please uh, write down or remember whatever the question or the problem I'm saying. Okay. Create table employee containing fields employee ID as a primary key with the data type varchar you can take, or sorry, no, varchar name, integer employee ID. Then employee name with the fields varchar, and it should not be null. Then salary. Now salary should be in the range of 20 to 30,000. Remember, salary should be in the range of 20 to 30,000. Okay. And then address, varchar, and contact number. So please write down this query and put it in a chat box. See, there are three, I think, how many constraints we have put? Three. One is the primary key for EMP-ID. Then there should not be any null value for employee name, and the salary of the employee should be between 20 to 30,000. So these three constraints you have to put it. Write down the query and put it in a chat box.
एड्रेस के बाद कौन सा फील्ड बोले आप?
Address and contact number.
Next one.
Ajay, two more constraints are missing. Name should not be null, and the salary should be in the range of 20 to 30,000. Include those two constraints. So Ziffin has written correctly. That is a between clause between 20,000 and 30,000. So please refer that query. Okay, fine, Malik. But where is your where is the command? MySQL में लिखा है आपने? Let me check. Create table employee, float, address, constraint. Constraint क्यों लिखा है मलिक? Contact varchar और फिर constraint salary C. But still there are errors with it. It's okay. So Ziffin has written correct. Ziffin, where is the constraint? Ziffin, you have not written the check constraint. You have written that between clause correctly, but that clause should come in check, inside check. Okay. E number, ENO, that is E number primary key, that is correct. Then E name varchar 212 not null, that is correct. Salary number, comma, address varchar 2, comma, check. Inside the parenthesis, you will write down between the salary, the salary between 20,000 and 30,000. That way. Okay. Okay, fine. So remaining all you can just try out afterwards. Fine. Now the next is query processing. Or the next topic is the query optimization. Now, before we start with the query optimization, the important thing for when we are studying about the query optimization, the relational algebra plays an important role. So we'll revise your relational algebra concepts also. Okay. So what is query optimization? See, it is when we execute or when a query is executed, it is first scanned, then passed and validated. This is basically the query process. These are the query processing steps, you can say. Scanning, then passed and validated. So these are the three basic steps. There are in between. We will learn it in detail further. So this way the query processing task is done. Now, while doing that query processing, when the query processing is done, that query will be represented internally using a tree structure, or you can say using a query graph. Okay, so after the processing of the query, the internal representation of the query is given in the form of query graph or the graph structure, tree structure. And then after that, the strategies, the alternative execution strategies are devised for retrieving results from the database tables. So the process of choosing the most appropriate execution strategy for query processing is called as query optimization. First, the query is processed. What is query optimization? The query is processed. It is converted into the internal representation in the form of tree, and then to retrieve the result from that query, it is how efficiently we can execute or how faster way we can get the results from that query tree. For that, the strategies, the execution strategies are devised by the database systems. So when we are saying the query optimization, that means we want the quicker output from that particular internal graph or from the internal tree structure. Okay, so for that purpose, it based on which strategy we are selected, that system is selecting. So the query optimization, it will basically the selection of appropriate execution strategy for query processing, so that we can make the query processing faster and to give the output in a minimum time. That is the query optimization. And for this query optimization, we require the relational algebra concepts to be known. Okay, so for this purpose, will learn about some relational algebra part also. Now, what is the issues in query optimization when we are sorry, handling in the distributed database environment? Now, in distributed database environment, query optimization is a difficult task as the database complexity. The complexity is high since the number of alternative strategies may increase exponentially due to the following factors. Okay, these are the factors. As based on this, the complexity of the query can be increased because the database is spread across different networks. So while extracting the data from the different fragments which are located far from each other, which query or how the query tree, efficient query tree should be generated. So which are those factors can affect the on the selection of alternative strategies? Those are the presence of number of fragments. How many fragments we have created? Based on the complexity of the query tree will get increases. Okay. If it is from the single database, it is easy to fetch the data. Okay. Only one command or a simple command. But if there are multiple tables or multiple fragments, then you need to use join and complex queries. Okay. The second thing is distribution of the fragments or tables across various sites. Like how you have distributed the fragments or the database across the various sites. Fine. Then third is speed of communication links. That is the one important factor. The speed of communication links. How fast your network is. And the third is disparity in local processing capabilities. There are other factors, the bandwidth, and then what your infrastructure, whatever you are using, all those factors while processing the data locally. So these are the four factors based on which or which can affect the complexity of the alternative strategy. Okay, the number of the presence of number of fragments, distribution of the fragments across the sites, the speed of communication links, and the variations in local processing capabilities. Okay, like if there are how many, I mean, different nodes are present, then whether irrespective of whether they are having the same application program or they are on the different platforms, so that complexities can contribute to this strategies complexity. So now in distributed system, to find a good execution strategy for query processing, here are the list which they have given. That is, the time to execute a query is the sum of all the following. So if in the distributed database system, if we want to find out the execution time of a query, the following factors you should sum up. The sum of all these factors. So the first one is time to communicate queries to databases. Then time to execute local query fragments. Locally, at what in how much time that query is getting executed from the query fragments, local query fragments. Then third is time to assemble data from different sites. Okay, so to fetch the data from the, if we, as per, if the user wants the details, so as per that, if the data or the fragments are located on different sites, how much time it takes to assemble the data from the different sites. So that time also we need to, it will be taken into consideration. Then time to display results to the application, that is the response time. Okay. So the time to execute a query is the sum of time to communicate queries to the database, then time to execute local query fragments, then time to assemble the data from different sites, and time to display the results to the application. It's entirely make up the query execution time. Now, query processing. But before that, I have to do the organization. Before starting with this query processing, we will just revise the concept of relational algebra, okay? Because that plays a major role in the query processing. Query process. What is relational algebra, by the way? CSIT students, please put some light on it. What is relational algebra? It's okay, you can read also from the slide. You can see, no? Desktop. Yes. What is relational algebra? Megha Gavankar. Megha? Hello, Megha? Megha? Hello? Megha? Megha is not responding. Yes, see, I want you to just read it from the desktop because I've shared the screen. I hope it is, you can see the screen. What is relational algebra? Prachi? Prachi? Prachi Kadam? Can you just unmute yourself? What is relational algebra? You just have to read it from the desktop, see from the screen. What is relational algebra? It defines the basic set of operations of relational database model. Okay, means what? How to, handle the data, or how to retrieve the data from the relational database model, RDBMS. What do you mean by relational database model? RDBMS, relational database model, means what? The data is in the form of relation. And what do you mean by relation? Relation is nothing but table. So the data is arranged in the form of rows and columns. That is called as a relational database model. And Relational algebra defines the basic set of operations for handling the data from the relational database model. Okay, that's why in query optimization, the relational algebra you required it, because the query which we write it is in SQL. See, the SQL is the programming language, or the PLSQL. Those are the programming language which converts this relational algebra into commands. Understood? So when they are there we have the commands select, then insert, update, jo bhi hai. So those are the programming languages which are actually converting the queries from the relational algebra to in the form of programming languages. The basic is with the theoretical background, if you can see, it is from the relational algebra. So whenever we are referring to the query, that is the relational algebra we write it. Okay. So relational algebra, it defines the different operations which we can perform on the table or relation. Remember, in relational algebraic term, table is referred as relation, tuple is referred as row is referred as tuple, and column is referred as attribute. Fine. So these are the basic operations. You can say projection, selection, union, intersection, minus, and join. These are all the basic operations. We all know all these mathematical operations. The same operations they have used to perform it on the relational database model. Now, there's a unary relation operations. Okay, unary relations operation means where we have the single operand. Okay, so that's why it is called as a unary relational operations. Which are the unary relational operations? Select, project, and rename. Where we have only one single operand. Select is represented with the sign sigma in relational algebra. Project is represented, that is a projection, is represented in the form of pi, and rename is represented in the form of row. Okay, so these are the three unary relational operations. Then the operations from set theory. Operations from set theory means all of you are aware of set theory. Physics, maths, sabhi students ko pata hai. Okay, so the same operations they are using it in the relational algebra. उनमें से union, then intersection, difference, and Cartesian product. These are the four operations from the set theory. And the third is binary relational operations, where we have the two operands. So under binary relational operations, we have the join and division. These two operations. So as you can see, as the complexity of the query increases, the binary, that is the join conditions are increases. Okay, so if there are more fragments, more join conditions, more joins will be there, and the complexity of that query will be increased. So now one by one we will see each of these operations. The first one is the select. Now select is an operation which is used for selecting the subset of the tuples according to a given selection condition. A subset of a tuples means what? It is select. It is basically the, now as you people are familiar with the SQL more, but so it is basically the command. Here the example they have given: select tuples from tutorials where topic is equal to database. So tutorial is a table, tuples are rows, and topic is equal to database. That is the predicate, you can say. Okay. So this way, suppose you want to select the tuples from the tutorials table where topic is equal to database. If such condition you want to give, then this is nothing but the select operation. So select operation is used for selecting a subset of the rule. It may all record contain all tuples or not, may or may not. अगर सभी है तो we put asterisk in SQL I'm talking about. Okay. And it is denoted by the sigma. So how it gets denoted, sigma, then P, that is a predicate, and then on which relation. R is basically the relation on which table you are putting that predicate. So sigma is the predicate, R stands for relation, which is the name of the table, P is the prepositional logic. Example, how you will write down now this query or this particular statement in relational algebra. If you can see, sigma topic. Okay, now topic is equal to, in the bracket we are passing the database, so that condition it will check. Okay, it will select the rows or the tuples from the database which are satisfying this condition, and the relation is tutorials. So tutorial is a table name basically on which we are filing a query. So this way we represented using relational algebra. The output will come all the tuples who are satisfying this condition from the tutorials table. Okay. Similarly, the example 2 they have given sigma topic is equal to database. See, in this condition you can specify as per the question or as per the problem which is given. Okay, you can use any combination of logical operators, arithmetic operators as per the problem. So sigma topic is equal to database and author is equal to Guru 99. So here they are checking with both the conditions. So that's why they have used this operator AND. Okay. So both two conditions, and on which table, that is on which relation, tutorials. Fine. So which will select the tuples from the tutorials where the topic is database and author is whichever we have mentioned in the double quotes. Similarly, the third example, sigma where cells greater than 50,000 on relation customer. Now this query will get the output, will give the output select tuples from customer where cells is greater than 50,000. Okay. Understood? See, for CSIT there is nothing, it is just a revision. Okay. But the other two girls, please study this relational algebra also. And if you can just stop me and ask me if you are finding it any, if you are having any query. Okay. So this is the select operation. Which will select the subset of tuples from a given relation which satisfies the condition. The next operator is the projection operator, which is denoted by pi. Okay, symbol pi. Now projection eliminates all the attributes of the input relation, but those mentioned in the projection list. It is a simple basically the operation without any condition. That is the pi. Now here they have given the example for the projection. The table is there having the fields customer ID, customer name and status. Okay, so the customer ID 1, 2, 3, 4, customer name Google, Amazon, Apple, and then status is active, inactive. Fine. Now here the projection of the customer name and status will give pi. It is just the how you just see how they have represented. Okay, pi customer name comma status on relation customers. So this particular query, this will select the customer and status, two columns from the table customers. Okay, so the output you will get it like this. This projection is basically without predicate, that is a condition we specify. Then the third one is the rename. Okay, now rename is what? Renaming of attributes of a relation. Okay. So if you want to use, suppose if you have a label or the column name is bigger and you have to write down in a query more than one time. So in such scenario, what we do, we create the or we rename that particular attribute with a shorter name. Okay, so that if there are lengthy queries or complex queries, we will be able to write it fast. Okay, with curving. So rename is unary operation used for renaming the attributes of a relation. So row in bracket A comma B, sorry, A or B and R, that is relation, will rename the attributes B of relation by A. So let's say you have the table employee, in that you have the attribute whose label column name is employee name. Okay, the full name, employee name. And now we want to, only for that query, you want to create the alias of it or the reference by saying only en. So your query will be row in bracket en slash employee name, close the parenthesis, employee. That is the table name. Okay, so whenever then it employee name you are writing, whenever you are to refer the employee name, instead of writing the entire employee name, you will just write down the en. Fine, that is the rename operation. Any doubt? Unary operation, select, projection, and the rename. Shweta, no, Shweta only, na? Shweta, Prachi, please ask if you have any doubt, okay? And the next is set operations. Those are union operations. The first one is a union. Now what is union? It includes all the tuples from one table, from both the tables. Okay, so it includes all tuples that are present in table A or in table B. It also eliminates the duplicate tuples. So if there is a duplicate values, those values also it will be removed. So how you will how to denote? It denotes using A union B. For a union operation to be valid, the following conditions must be satisfied. Which are these two conditions? Which are these conditions? R and S must be the same number of attributes. मतलब दोनों भी table में सेम ही नंबर ऑफ एट्रीब्यूट्स होनी चाहिए. If you want to combine or if you want to put union operation on the two tables, they both should have the same number of attributes. Second, attribute domains need to be compatible. मतलब अगर एक में आपने नंबर दिया है, दूसरे में सेम ही उसके लिए I mean, if you have used the different data type, then it will not do the allow you to use this operator. Then third is duplicate tuples should be automatically removed. Okay, so if there are tuples, those duplicate tuples, those should be automatically removed. So these are the three conditions it should satisfy. So these are the tables. Example, table A and table B. Table A having 2 columns, table B having 2 columns. Okay, so A union B. In union B, if you see, it will give you now column 1 and column 1 from table A and column 1 from table B. So 1 1 1 1 and now if you see the column 2 from A and column 2 from B. Okay, so 1 1. Now if you see here, we have the 1 2 and 1 3 also. So here 1 1 is common. Okay, so that is a duplicate, so it will remove that, and then the value will be 1 1 in the A union B, 1 1 1 2 and 1 3. This is the output of A union B. Fine. This is simple. These are just the same set theory or the operations they are performing on the table. Now, set difference means the result of A minus B is a relation which includes all tuples that are present in A but not in B. All tuples which are present in A but not in B. Okay, remember. So the attribute name of A has to match with the attribute name in B. Then two operand relations A and B should be either compatible or union compatible. Then third, it should be defined relation consisting of the tuples which are in relation A but not in B. Now we see the example A minus B. We have the column 1 and column 2. The A and B intersection or the set difference, the output we get, that is 1 and 2. The columns which are all tuples that are in A but not in B. So we will just check all tuples which are in A but not in B. Okay, that's why they have shown the output 1 1 2. Okay. And the intersection defines the relation consisting of set of all tuples that are in both A and B. Okay. So 1 1 is common to both A and B. So you can see the output is 1 1. Okay. Now Cartesian product is basically, it is used to merge the columns from two relations. Now generally Cartesian product we use with the join conditions. However, it becomes meaningful when it is followed by other operations. So it is also called as a cross product or cross join. It is denoted by, you can say, A cross B. So sigma column 2 is equal to 1 on A cross B. So we have to check, here we are checking the column 2 value is equal to 1. In which relation? Basically the cross product of the Cartesian product of A cross B. So the output is 1 1 1 1. Okay, the column 2 where it is satisfying the value 1. That this is the Cartesian product. I think we'll join. Actually, it requires a little more time. So for today, we will stop it here.